Hello everyone, this is a Release 18 update video for the Pathfinder 2nd edition rule set on Fantasy Grounds. You'll know if you've got the Release 18 rule set because it will show you in the chat window there, telling you PF to Release 18. This is a high-level overview video. I'm going to do additional videos to go into depth in certain areas that warrant that additional information, but I'm just going to go through at a high level a few of the areas that have changed or have had additions in Release 18. So the first addition is that characters now have attack proficiencies on their combat tab. So here we have attack proficiencies where we can add, or the system can auto add attack proficiencies that then get tied to a weapon, and they should automatically update on the weapons. So the key thing here is that previously you had to do that manually. And now when you open a character that was created or modified prior to Release 18, it's going to go through an upgrade process and attempt to change and identify the attack proficiencies from the data that's listed. Normally it's listed in this section here, but what it's going to do is it's going to try and rebuild those proficiencies from that. So I have a level 1 fighter that was created in a previous version. If I open that, you're going to get a message box about Release 18 update embedded within the character sheet, and this will happen for every prior to Release 18 character sheet that you open, but you'll only see this message once, telling you that the attack proficiencies have been built from the abilities tab proficiency data, and check in the combat tab that they're correct. This will especially be important for higher level characters to make sure that all the data is correct. And it says weapon attacks will now be calculated using the best of the matched attack proficiencies in the combat tab data. So we can press OK to get rid of that, and we can go to the combat tab, and we can now see that simple weapons, martial weapons, and unarmed attack are set as expert, and advanced weapons are set as trained. And that's based off this information here that was populated from previously adding a fighter to this character. So expert in simple, expert in martial, expert in advanced, expert in unarmed. So that's great. So that's all working well there. Now, whenever those values change, the relevant proficiency should be applied automatically on all the weapons in the combat tab, and when you add a new weapon to a character, that should automatically set the relevant proficiency as well. So if I'm just going to add a battle axe to this character, go and have a look at the battle axe section here. You can see it's set the proficiency of expert because this is a battle axe is a martial melee weapon, and martial weapons have expert, so that should all do the change. If you change those values in there, then you can see that the proficiency automatically gets changed as well on those on all relevant weapons. Now, the thing with the attack proficiencies now is that there's 3 different type of categories. There's 3 different types. Category means it's going to use one of these high-level categories: martial, melee, martial weapons, advanced weapons, simple weapons, unarmed weapons, and that will match against the category that an actual a weapon has. The second option is, so I'll just add a test in here, and you can cycle through these, is to click on it is group, and that matches the group that an actual weapon is in. And the final one is the name of a weapon, so that is going to match an actual specific name of a weapon. So there's some characters that have proficiencies that are that have specific weapons on them. An example of that is a rogue. I'll just enable all of the buttons in the sidebar. So a rogue actually has, it's trained in a rapier, sap, short sword, and short bow and short sword. So you'd see entries in here with type name rapier, type name sap, type name, short bow, and things like that. And the way the order that the system will look for a match is it will go the highest of name, then group, then then category. So make sure that everything's set up correctly. And if you do change the name of a special weapon in your actions tab, make sure that you reflect that in any specific attack proficiencies. So now we have those attack proficiencies in there, and as we level up, the system should set the relevant proficiencies in there, but always check them. While we're in the combat tab, you'll see that there's now a new entry here called character effects, and this is where we can add effects that are permanently on for this character, and they'll be added essentially added to the effects that are already on the character in the combat tracker. You won't see them in the combat tracker, they will only appear here, but this allows you to set up some effects that are permanent to this character. So just as an example, we can set a effect here. It has a name field and an effect field, so I'm just going to call that test, and we can have attack +1 status or something like that in there. You can just set that, and you can reveal all effects, hide all effects, and when you actually hover over the effect name, it's going to tell you what the effect actually is, and I've got that incorrectly. So now when you make an attack roll, it's going to use any effects in the combat tracker. It's also going to use any effects applied to you here. So they can see effects +1 for that attack. We can basically skip off or on for those, and these don't have durations or anything like that. They're character effects that are on the character at this point in time. Maybe some additional functionality will be added in the future, but at the moment they just appear. They're either on or off, essentially. And you can see that when I turned it off, the effect was no longer applied there. And this leads into another area that's a big change in Release 18, or a big addition in Release 18, and that's automation on various record types within the system. I'll be doing a separate video to go into the automation in depth, but just to cover it off very quickly, you'll see that some records have a little A next to them, which actually means that there's automation available when that record is applied to a character sheet. So these are feats. Now normally if you open that record, you won't actually see those because by default the automation code is hidden, but you can enable it through an experimental development campaign option, show ability fields. That can be off, that can be on, or that can be edit only. So edit only, you only see the field when you're editing a record. Off means you never see it even when you're editing, and on means you see it when you're editing or when you're just viewing a record. So just for this, I'm going to turn that to on, and I'm going to open breath control as an example. This has an automation field, so we see that because the option's on, and it basically is going to apply effects to the character when that this feat is added to the character, and it's going to actually apply 2 character effects to that character. So I'll just open our fighter again. I'll open the tracker just to give it a little bit more information as well. Note that the tracker has the information about the upgrade as well. I mean, I suggest when you're doing anything on a character sheet that you open the tracker for that character sheet, because there's a lot of good guidance and information in here. So I'm going to add breath control to Valoros. It's going to tell me, because I have the effects shown, that it's adding processing automation data and that feat breath control has been added to Valoros. In the abilities tab, we see breath control and we see little equals next to it saying, hey, some automation's been applied, and we have 2 character effects have been applied. So now when I go to the character effects entry, I can see there's 2 effects linked to breath control. We can click the link to open that feat that's been applied to our character. We can view the details of the actual effect that is applied to this character, and we can hide those as well. So these are always going to be on, and these are a couple of effects. One is that there's a +1 circumstance bonus to inhaled saving throws. So this is you gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against inhaled threats. And there's also save result +1 success in inhaled. Save result is a new effect that I'll be going into in another video, but this means that if you roll a success on a saving throw, you get a critical success instead. So this is saying save result plus 1 success level success against an inhaled save. So there's various things within Pathfinder that if you roll a success, you get a critical success. You roll a critical failure, you get a failure instead, based off certain types of saving throws. And this save result now allows those to be coded and automatically tracked within the system. So like I say, we'll be going into effects and automation in another video in a lot more depth, but there is a lot more to these automation fields that allow basically character creation to be a lot smoother, and in certain cases also allows us to revert character creation entries. So if I remove breath control, that's removed those combat those effects as well from the character sheet. So there is for certain automation, they can actually be removed as well from the character. As I mentioned previously, the chargen tracker really is something that you should have open if you're doing anything against the character sheet, so that you can get some feedback on what's being applied and what isn't being applied. The new automation that comes as release 18 is going to apply a lot more than it previously did, and it's going to give feedback on this, but it's also going to tell you where automation can't be applied and you have to do it manually yourself. So it's really a good idea to just keep this open when you're doing anything to a character, really. The main gotcha with this is that this data is kind of populated bottom to top. So the first things that happen with a character starts at the bottom and it fills up to the top. So always kind of go down, and most things are going to have an obvious kind of break when things are being added to the actual character sheet. So have a look. Things in red is things that you really have to do. Things in bold are kind of pay attention or review something. So really just have a look in here just to make sure that everything's going okay. A new feature in the chargen tracker in release 18 is that there's now add a level button. Once you've added a class, you now add a level. So previously you'd have to go, and if you wanted to add a class, you'd come here and you drag and drop your class to the character sheet or the chargen tracker. Now when you want to just level up, you click add a level, and that is going to use the data that's linked to the original entry that you actually added to your character sheet. As long as you have that module open, if it was from a module, or you have access to that data, then this should work fine. So you just click add a level, and the usual thing is you get feedback here in the chargen tracker with a line across the new data that's been added. 1 level class fighter added to Valeros. It says class hit points are now 24. How they're being calculated, and it gives you information about what you need to do. Add fighter feat 2 to the Valeros fighter. So fighter feat 2 is a class feat, so we can click the class window and it's going to show us all the fighter feats of level 1 or level 2 that are available to Valeros, and it tells you the source of those books as well. So you can decide what feat you want to actually add, and then you just drag and drop that feat to the chargen tracker or to the character sheet, but ideally the chargen tracker, and it tells you that the feat's been added to Valeros but no automations applied. You need to review that and see exactly how that works and how you're going to use that within the system. Similarly, it says add a skill feat to Valeros, so we click on skill. It takes a little longer to open because there's a lot of data in there. Yeah, sorry, I've got to close that one first. This has all of the skills of level 1 or 2 because this is now a level 2 character. This doesn't filter out ones that you may not meet the prerequisites, so always check on those. And as usual, just have a look at what you can actually get and make your decision. And when you've made your decision, just drag and drop that skill feat to the character. And again, have a look at if there's anything that you actually need to do when you add that. So Streetwise, tells you what can actually happen when you can get bonuses from having that feat. The final little thing relating to the character sheet is that now the abilities tab, which tracks the level that that these various abilities, class abilities, rules and abilities, and feats were added to this character sheet. The system by default now orders by those levels, but there has been a button added that can change that to name or levels descending. So you can click name, it's going to order by name. You can click levels descending, so it's going to start high, so you can click levels ascending, and that you can change that, and that'll be saved when you make that on this character. But the default now is that it orders in the level that you actually applied that feat ability or whatever. And this is not the level of the feat, this is the level that it was applied. So you can know this for if you need to retrain, if this is essentially a second level class feat, even if it is an actual level 1 feat. So if you want to retrain double slice, you can actually have a level 1 or 2 feat to actually apply that to. So that's everything for the character sheet. The final thing that I'd like to cover is just that there's been some of the automation added to hazards. So this is something for the GM. So at the moment there's just the automation fields. These haven't really been populated with data yet, but hopefully by the end of testing we'll have all the data actually populated. And what we actually have is we now have automation available, just like there is for the NPCs, in the reaction, the actions, and the routine section of a hazard. So now if you actually drag a hazard to the combat tracker and open the entry from there, you can see that there's this automation available. The automation is shown there purely because I have automation turned on, view automation turned on in the options menu. That wouldn't be there if you had that turned off, but you'd always be able to see that there's a little A here telling you that there is automation within that field, and the automation is within these square brackets. So as a GM, you can just highlight that to see what's actually going to be applied. So basically, takes falling damage, typically 10 bludgeoning damage. So now if I actually then just double click on that, it's going to apply 10 bludgeoning damage to a character that's in the that's being targeted. So we'll put Valeros in there, and we can target Valeros, and when we double click that, there's 10 damage has been done to Valeros. Or you can drag and drop it if you prefer to drag and drop damage as well. So that's now been added in so that the hazards will be easier to use for the GMs. Currently that data doesn't appear in the combat tracker. You have to open the actual entry just through the link, but maybe in the future some of that data will be added in the combat tracker like it is for the current NPCs. So that's a quick run through. There's a lot more details that I'm going to provide in separate videos around the automation and effects, but that's what's coming in release 18. It's going to be in test fairly soon, middle of March, and then depending how test goes, hopefully it's going to be released towards the end of March, beginning of April. Thanks for watching.